everyone, we are Team 1. Our names are Elisa, Rachel, Julianne, and Melyssa. The song we are presenting is Boys Keep Swinging by David Bowie.
Boys Keep Swinging is the third track on side 2 of Bowie's 13th studio album, Lodger. The song was released on April 27, 1979. Interestingly, when Bowie first performed the song on SNL in 1979, the line, "When you're a boy, other boys check you out," was censored.
The following is a quote from David Bowie explaining how there was no representation for bisexuality before he came along. Someone asked me in an interview once, I believe it was in 71, if I were gay. I said, no, I'm bisexual. The guy, a writer for one of the English traders, had no idea what the term meant, so I explained it to him. Sex was still shocking. Everybody wanted to see the freak, but they were so ignorant about what I was doing. There was very little talk of bisexuality or gay power before I came along.
Boys Keep Swinging is a commentary on not only drag, but manhood as a performance in and of itself. Bowie's perspective on sexuality and gender roles as an openly bisexual man in the 70s and 80s makes him an important queer voice in music history and pop culture.
The LGBTQ issues that we will be discussing in our presentation include drag, gender as performance, bisexuality, and male privilege.
In this music video, the lines of gender and sexuality are blurred. The first LGBT issue represented in this video is drag. Drag refers to someone dressing up as the opposite gender. The common type of drag we often see are men dressed as women, also known as drag queens. The chorus of this song is sung by male backup singers in drag. David Bowie played all three of the drag singers. Bowie was known to be androgynous and also dress in drag for his performances, music videos, and album covers. In Donald Hall's book, Queer Theories, he describes drag as an imitation of the heterosexual identity. The drag singers are imitating the female heterosexual identity by wearing makeup, wigs, and dresses. They are expressing themselves as a stereotype of a woman by exaggerating the femininity through their appearance. One of the most common events in drag is ball culture. Ball culture are when drag queens have a competition performance, usually replicating a fashion show. Towards the end of the video, we get a sense of ball culture as the drag queens appear from behind the curtains and begin to strut down a runway. Bowie's use of drag in his music video helped further LGBT equality by disrupting gender stereotypes. Our society has now normalized drag. We currently see drag in our pop culture. One of the highest rating TV shows right now is RuPaul's Drag Race, a competition in which drag queens compete for the title of America's Next Drag Superstar. Bowie paved the way for drag to be normalized in our society by breaking down stereotypes, being gender fluid, and participating in gender transgression.
Beyond the obvious showmanship elements of drag, Boys Keep Swinging is also a commentary on the performative nature of gender itself. The juxtaposition of Bowie's lyrics about boys having it all, followed by the unveiling of his 3 drag identities, alludes to the idea that Bowie's manhood is just as much of an act as his drag. Hall discusses this very idea by referencing influential queer theorist Judith Butler's 1991 work, Imitation and Gender Insubordination. On page 72, Butler is cited as saying that gender is a kind of imitation for which there is no original. Butler elaborates by saying that heteronormativity is compelled to repeat itself over and over in an effort to maintain the illusion that it's the only option, and thus is not a real or secure identity at all. Lyrically, this song represents the notion as well, as Bowie basically just lists off the things that happen when you're a boy, like wearing a uniform, getting girls being your favorite thing, and popping cherries. The only basis these assertions have in reality are that they are repetitive societal norms. Bowie's dancing is also very distinct and exaggerated when he is representing himself in the video. He moves in a way that in a day-to-day context might be perceived as effeminate, but is customary of male rock stars. This phenomenon is an interesting shift from male performance acts that are typically about toughness, like described in Bowie's lyrics, to being more about showmanship, dance, and sensuality. In a 2000 interview with Bust magazine, Bowie states that Boys Keep Swinging is playing on the idea of the colonization of a gender. The colonization he refers to could include the stereotypes and expectations of a heterosexual culture that exists only to serve itself and is constantly trying so hard to prove its worth. Displays of dominance, manhood, and obsessions with being macho are all performative acts indicative of the frailty of one's own identity and the failing idealization of heteronormativity.
We have a few points to cover in terms of bisexuality in Bowie's life as an out bisexual man and in this song. So one of the themes present in Boys Keep Swinging is men's bisexuality. Some of his lyrics read, "When you're a boy, other boys check you out, you get a girl, these are your favorite things." So his own journey coming out as bisexual was pretty unique. In 1976, he did a Playboy interview and he was asked, let's start with the one question you've always seemed to hedge. How much of your bisexuality is fact and how much is gimmick? And to this he answered, it's true, I am a bisexual, but I can't deny that I've used that fact very well. I suppose it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And then in 1983, he did a Rolling Stones interview where he said, the biggest mistake I ever made was telling that melody maker writer that I was bisexual. Christ, I was so young then, I was experimenting. And then in 2002, he did an interview with Blender and he was asked, you once said that saying you were bisexual was the biggest mistake I ever made. Do you still believe that? To which he responded, interesting, I don't think it was a mistake in Europe, but it was a lot tougher in America. I had no problem with people knowing I was bisexual, but I had no inclination to hold any banners or be a representative of any group of people. I knew what I wanted to be, which was a songwriter and a performer, and I felt that bisexuality became my headline over here for so long. So Bowie understood that coming out as bisexual could result in the pressure of being a bisexual representative in pop culture and that he didn't want the responsibility of it. He simply wanted a responsibility of being a musician. And this statement is pretty significant because it alludes to the fact that there is a lack of bisexual representation in America. In Bi Notes for Bisexual Revolution, author Sherry Eisner shares about lack of bisexual representation, saying, bisexual erasure is present on every level and sphere of our lives, from the public and cultural level through the social and community level and to the private level. Bisexual erasure means, among other things, a lack of representations, lack of communities, lack of awareness, lack of speech, and lack of acknowledgement. Bowie also faced many other interviews in which he was questioned as to whether he was quote-unquote gay and then not gay, to which he shut down. These questions were a direct consequence of a myth about bisexual people. Eisner also shares that myth, and she says that it is bisexuals are actually gay or actually straight, and she explains that this stems from the stereotype that bisexuals are confused and that they are anything other than bisexual. She continues, in hegemonic discourse, this quote-unquote anything is usually imagined as the narrow option of either gay or straight. Interestingly, for bisexual women, the presumption is that we're really straight, while bisexual men are often presumed to be really gay. So, to conclude, Eisner's take on this bisexual myth can provide insight on why Bowie's bisexuality was always questioned, and he was often asked to elaborate on his quote-unquote gayness.
In the music video Boys Keep Swinging by David Bowie, we can dive deep into the lyrics and analyze the lyrical presentation of male privilege or the gender inequalities between men and women. Within the music video and lyrics, the discussion of gender inequality, the idea of masculinity, and the sense of entitlement that men feel plays a role in the analyzation in terms of LGBTQIA+ topics and awareness. Bowie articulates with his lyrics the sense of gender inequality found within society in terms of men and women. In an interview by Bust magazine, Bowie is asked a myriad of questions that his wife picked out for him in relation to masculinity, feminism, and his music. When asked the question, "What does the word feminism mean to you?" Bowie responds with, "In general, I suppose I find it intensely offensive to see women treated as chattel or appendages. I cannot think of a situation where a woman could not do an equal, if not better job than a man. Possibly, a situation requiring only brute strength may be the exception, but here again, a woman would be smart enough to organize the right person for the job. In that singular case, probably a man. Although Bowie makes it clear that the word feminism does not mean much to him anymore because the personal definition is always subjective, we can gather that Bowie wanted to make it clear within his song that women and men should be treated fairly. Bowie believes that women should not be treated as chattel or appendages, and within his song he sings the lyrics, "The clouds part for ya, nothing stands in your way when you're a boy. Clothes always fit ya." It is as though he is trying to explain the idea that it doesn't matter what you do when you are a man because the clouds will always part for you, and nothing will stand in your way. In society today, we often see the idea of male privilege being prevalent in the workforce, and men are always getting their way. Another idea explored can be the idea of mansplaining, which is rooted in the assumption that a man is likely to be more knowledgeable than a woman. It is an unfair but very common assumption that is found within communities. The idea of masculinity is also present in the lyrical understanding of the song. Bowie sings the lyrics, "Life is a pop of the cherry." This can be interpreted as life being amazing when you're a boy, because you get everything you want, because men are the superior sex. And it can also be interpreted as having a sexual connotation, meaning behind it. When you're a boy, you can take a girl's virginity because men are the superior sex again. Bowie also sings, "You get a girl, these are your favorite things when you're a boy." We can gather the idea here that Bowie is expressing the fact that men get women and their favorite thing is to have a woman. He also expresses the entitlement that men feel. For example, the idea that they are always first in line. This expression can mean that men are always picked first. However, it can also go back to the line where Bowie says, "You can wear a uniform," which in terms refers to the military. He also sings about men being able to buy a home. This can be analyzed as men being the only ones who could be homeowners and women keeping the home. He also sings that men can drive and do everything.
Boys Keep Swinging is a representation of drag culture, the inherently performative nature of gender, and a discussion of male privilege that ultimately provided visibility to LGBTQ+ communities. Bowie's openness about his bisexuality and gender fluidity cements him as a historical queer figure in pop culture. Thank you for listening.